Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And is Coke ditching the woke?
Okay.
Coke has apparently backpedaled on its position on diversity and inclusion for now. Mm-hmm. For now. This is not a permanent thing.
It's paused.
It's paused.
They're taking a break.
They're taking a break. That's right. Is this going to be like Friends? Like, oh, we were able to do this and that because we were taking a break. Yeah, so Coke, if you remember the previous videos, they basically got busted. They found a seminar that the company had liked that was written by Robin DiAngelo, a white woman writing white fragility, telling people how to be less white. And in there, that was actually one of the bullet points was you need to be less white. Got leaked. Coke employees found out. There's a big brouhaha, and I don't know how it affected their stock. I don't know how it affected their public image. I know a lot of people were pretty pissed about it. A lot of employees were pretty pissed about it. They had some staff changes. Now it seems like they're rethinking that position. So we're going to talk about that. We might touch a little bit on Basecamp too while we're at it, and while we're talking about politics at work. And we don't like to talk about politics that much.
I don't think politics should be even at work.
But it comes up in everything. It comes up in everything anymore.
It didn't used to. Remember a few years ago when you worked with people and you didn't know what their politics were, nor did you care?
Yeah. It's so weird because one company I worked for, we actually dealt with the government. And our CEO, his brother was actually an elected official. He had run for office himself. I worked there for years before I knew what party affiliation he had. And there were a good mixture of Democrats, Republicans, and I don't give a shits, working on government documents and stuff like that. Nobody really cared. We were encouraged strongly to take the day, or at least take the morning off to go vote. They would let you take the morning off to go vote, and they wouldn't dock you for that.
But they didn't demand who you voted for. They didn't, say you're going to be fired if you didn't vote a certain way. You weren't strong-armed into it. You weren't bullied for it.
No.
We have people who work for us freelance, and I can honestly tell you, I do not know their politics.
No.
I never asked. That's between them and the ballot, and I don't care.
Does it affect our bottom line? Does it affect the website? The only time we ever have any issue with somebody's personal politics is if it gets in the way, possibly, of work we're doing.
Right. So we just tell people to stay apolitical and call it a day.
Yeah, for the most part. So Coke, they're possibly maybe rethinking this. We're going to talk about that. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We're over 187,000 subs, getting to 188. Now, Coke, this is something that definitely ties into pop culture because Coke is such a fixture in pop culture. Movie theaters, restaurants, theme parks, all use Coca-Cola. It's an American icon. And a couple of months ago, they gotten hot carbonated water for wanting the employees to be less white. And
they actually said that it was about being less white. It was actually part of the slides.
Be less white. Be less white. And they got a lot of pushback from that. So here he goes.
That's why you should drink Diet Coke, because then there's less weight in it. But Coke used to be made of cocaine. And so that's where, so they used to have plenty of weight.
Maybe that's what they mean.
That wasn't what they meant.
Maybe that's what they meant by be less white. Snort less white. Okay, so this is coming from the Daily Mail UK. Is Coke rethinking woke? Soft drink giant puts pause on diversity plan requiring outside law firms meet racial quotas or have their legal fees reduced.
So this isn't an internal thing. They're telling the companies that want to work with them how many people they should have in their...
Yeah.
You don't get the right to do that. I mean, if you want, it's your company, and if you want to put, diversity rules in place and everything else, that's up to you. But you don't get to tell other companies what they should do.
Yeah, so it seems like they were extending their diversity and inclusion initiative to outside vendors as well.
Well, that's, you're not allowed to do that. I mean, it's like if you want to do that and Coke wants to do that, that's completely fine. If that's what they want to do and people are, qualified for their jobs, that, more power to them. But they don't get to tell everybody else how to run their companies and they want to work with them.
The Atlanta-based Coca-Cola company pauses controversial diversity plan. This is going to be the next thing. Before we get into this as a business owner myself, this is very concerning because it's one thing if you've got, certain things in play at your company, your in-house employees. But when you start demanding the same thing of your outside vendors, what do you do if your outside vendors are in another country that's maybe not as diverse as the United States?
Or not as up their own ass as the United States?
What do you do? So this is definitely, in my opinion, overreaching.
Well, it is overreaching. That's why they paused it.
Plan requires, and you don't want to piss with a bunch of lawyers, do you?
No.
Plan requires outside law firms working for company to meet racial quotas. At least 30% of the law firm's attorneys billed by Coca-Cola must be minorities. Plan also required law firm to have half the minority attorneys be black. Diversity plan put in place by Coca-Cola ex-general counsel Bradley Gayton, who himself is black. Gayton resigned last week to become a consultant to CEO James Quincy. He was replaced by Monica Howard Douglas, who announced a pause in the plan. Coca-Cola came under fire from the GOP after it opposed the election reform. That's a totally different issue. This, though, I find very concerning that they're extending it to outside vendors.
Right. They paused it because I think apparently a lot of people found it concerning because it's like, this is getting ridiculous.
Including the lawyers.
I am just really tired of the fact that it's absolutely ridiculous anymore that you can't do anything unless you're judged by who you vote for. This literally is like, communist China. If, your social credit score, that has to be what you vote the right way, you have the right opinions. And if you don't, your other employees will rat you out and make sure. I'm like, you don't get to tell people how to vote. If they want to vote for effing Santa Claus, they can vote for Santa Claus. You don't get that. You don't get to tell other people how to vote. You just don't get to. I mean, if a celebrity doesn't vote the way they want, they go out and try to cancel them. We've seen it time and time again. It's bullying. It's very fascisty of you. And I'm just really absolutely tired of it. I have a lot of people who vote different ways, and I don't tell them how they should vote. I figure they're going to vote the way they want. I'll vote the way I want. And at the end of the day, that's between them and the ballot.
Now, here's where it gets really weird, because it's not just like, hey, we'd like to work with more minorities, marginalized people, women, etc., whatever their quota is. They said the law firms that failed to comply would see their legal fees reduced or have their lawyers cut off completely from any future work with Coke, according to the guidelines. So if you have your team and you're damn good lawyers, but you don't meet Coke's diversity quota.
This sounds like a lawsuit to me.
Well, yeah, that's like, these are the last people you want to be pissing with. Pissing off a bunch of lawyers is literally the last thing you want to do right now. So they said that we believe pursuing diversity is not only the right thing to do. This is Gayton.
Well, that might be what you believe.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do believe that. But you don't get to project that onto everybody else.
Well, that's just it. What we need to do was stand up the organization now. That's what he was hired for. That was Gayton's focus. He was hired in September 2020.
Wow, he wasn't there very long.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, this guy was here for like 6 months and was already
he was a chief lawyer at the Ford Motor Company. Okay,
30 years.
A chief lawyer.
Years.
This sounds to me like a personal vendetta. This sounds to me like I worked as a lawyer and I'm mad because I don't think law firms represent as much as they should. So now that I'm in this position, I'm going to demand they do, or I'm make sure they don't get gigs, they don't get work. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't be represented. I think they should be, and I think that they need to step up that. But it seems to me like after 30 years as chief lawyer for Ford Motors, it sounds like he was trying to make a change because he felt like he had the power to do so.
Right, which, when you're, that's...
But you can do it in your own company. You can't demand other people do it.
So yeah, he signed a contract whereby the company agreed to pay him $12 million over the next year. That included a $4 million sign-on fee and a monthly consulting fee of
this explains everything.
666. Gayton will now serve as strategic consultant to the CEO, James Quincy. After his departure, he was replaced by Monica Howard Douglas, who is black and female, who told staffers last week that the diversity initiative was on pause. Douglas said the diversity initiative was being evaluated. It was likely the company would keep parts of it.
Right, but you can't demand everybody else.
The legal parts of it.
I just can't.
We're going to keep the legal parts of it. So then they get into the Georgia politics. We're not going to get into that. We're just going to talk about the business side of it. But they said, yeah, earlier this year, Coke came under fire for uploading a resource video encouraging employees to be less white. Slides from the inclusive workplace video went viral on social media after they were shared by a whistleblower
I love this.
working for the soft
To
drink
be
giant.
less white is to be those things. If you inserted any other race in there, you'd be called a racist because it's a very racisty thing to say.
To be less white is to smell better, to smile more.
No, that's not what it says.
To
but
be a
again,
decent
written
human
by
being.
a white woman.
Yes. That's what blows my mind. Like, it's all of this, the white fragility stuff is written by a white woman.
Look, you shouldn't be a dick. And I stand by this every day of the week. You know, I don't care what race you are, what gender you are, what sexual orientation you are, what religion you are, et cetera, et cetera. I don't care. As long as you're not an asshole, we're going to get along great.
So this is, I gotta wonder, I mean, personally, do I think they're going to probably ultimately push it through? Maybe, possibly. But, people are like, why don't these companies stand up to activists that have infiltrated the company and they basically just want to use the company as a platform because they get pushback. They get pushback when they do. Basecamp, and I want to give a shout out to Black Sage D, who's been sending me links to this. Basecamp came out and said, hey, we're going to be apolitical. And
Which companies should be, honestly,
Yeah, and there was a lot of outrage. A third of their employees left, and now there are all kinds of allegations being lobbed at Basecamp.
What does that tell you? We're going to be less political and a third of your employees leave because they're having a hissy fit because they can't ram politics down everybody's throats?
Yeah.
Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. I mean, if you want to vote left or right, I don't care. But no one needs to listen to you constantly, talk at people about your political beliefs at work.
I think too, and I read another article on another site saying that, some of the employees were screaming and crying at, they were doing a Zoom meeting or something, and they were like screaming and crying when this was all going on. And I'm thinking back to that WeWork documentary.
That's exactly what this sounds like.
Okay.
Go watch that, guys.
You have to watch the WeWork documentary, and you'll see ultimately where all of this leads, because WeWork was a prime example of, activists first, company second. However, the people in charge viewed it the opposite way. They were like, it's company first and it's funding my lifestyle, whatever. The people working for the company honestly thought they were there to change the world. And a lot of people come into companies that don't have that mission statement. WeWork was very much like, we want to change the world, but they come into companies, they're just like, we just want to make software. We just want to make Coke. We just want to make whatever. And they want to use the platform to change the world.
What makes me mad about these types of people is it's all about, we're also inclusive. We want to change the world. We need something to get behind, all those other things, which aren't necessarily bad things. The problem is when you're not accepting of everyone. Like, I would have no problem with having people that were Democrat or Republican working at the same place with me, who might not look like me, might be different than me. I have absolutely no problem with that. The difference is they have a problem with that. So at the end of the day, when they're yelling about istophobes, they are usually the biggest istophobes around because they want everybody to be like them. They can't stand anybody to be different than them, especially politically.
What gets me is like, look, and again, this is an employer's point of view. Okay, as an employer, I guess I am.
We are now, yeah.
As someone who's has overseen employees for other companies, the company is effectively buying your time. They're buying your time to work for them, to make them money, to do the assigned tasks for your 8 or 10 hours a day or whatever the agreement was. You've got other waking hours that you can use if you want to do your activism or whatever. But at the end of it, the time that the company is paid for belongs to the company. And if they tell you, we don't want you to get overly political while you're working for us, then that's the deal.
But I'm sure it causes strife in the workplace. And I'm not saying either side. If there's extremists on either side trying to bring it into the workplace, it's going to cause strife in the workplace, which you don't want. Nothing's going to get done. It's going to be constant fighting. I don't blame them. I would say keep the politics out of it too.
Well, this is what they said. They said Basecamp, after the Chicago-based software firm said last week it will no longer allow political discussions on the company platform. Employees are free to have these conversations on private accounts, but it can't happen where the work happens anymore, said the CEO.
Well, I don't blame him. I think that's a smart move.
Yeah, he said talking about politics, advocacy, or society at large has become a major distraction that is not healthy and hasn't served us well.
Agreed.
Employees shouldn't have to wonder if staying out of it means you're complicit or wading into it means you're a target. These are difficult enough waters to navigate in life, but significantly more so at work. And again, I've been mostly self-employed during, I guess, what I call the change, like 2014, 2015 is when things changed. But back in the day, and by the day, I mean 2013.
They're talking like not even 10 years ago.
Not even 10 years ago. Back in the day, chances are you didn't know the politics of your coworkers. You showed up, you did your job.
It didn't matter.
Maybe you'd bitch about stuff on your lunch break or whatever, but you were not using company communication to bitch about politics.
Right. And I don't blame him. I mean, I'm thinking of the place I worked. I mean, I was a teacher too, so I worked in schools and stuff. We would never have been allowed to do this shit.
No.
Most professional jobs, you wouldn't be allowed to do this shit. And the people quitting over it, I mean, literally you're going to quit your job because they're telling you can't talk about politics and activism on the company platform.
Well, here's where it gets like really crazy. He basically said, if you don't want to work here because of that, we understand. We will give you a severance package of up to 6 months' salary.
Yeah, most places would just be like, don't let the door hit and ask the way out. They would not give you 6 months' salary. I wouldn't have given them 6 months' salary.
Hell no. No hard feelings, no questions asked. You know, I mean, that is, in today's world, that is an incredibly generous offer. I mean, hell, I was middle management for a company. I got laid off. I didn't get jack shit.
He didn't get anything. And he did so much for them. He even developed their new product that they were getting awards for, which of course they made sure, the guy in charge made sure he took the awards, even though it was Kneon who did it.
Yeah, it's the story of my life.
Yeah, actually it happens to him all the time.
It happened multiple times.
It happened to our last website too. But it's just like this keeps happening. And, you know, they're being very nice. I mean, the fact that they're offering that, you know, they didn't have to, but there's this generation of people, and I'm betting these people, if you look at the age range of these people, is probably in the same generation of people where they just think they're owed something. They think that's because they got a degree and they show up that you're supposed to give them the job. Just because they're there, you're supposed to bow down and kiss their ass. And that's not how real life works. Again, watch WeWorks.
Watch WeWorks. WeWorks is a prime example of what happens when you put activism over profit. And, you know, when the truth came out that the company was basically just huffing pixie dust, you know.
It wasn't even activism. It was just this whole idea. That
we're all part of it, yeah.
It's usually associated with the same people that are these far activists.
It was let me help you help me. It was the CEO had, you know, cult-like personality. And it was all, but, you know.
I'm sorry, but politics anymore is a cult.
Yeah. And to get you to help him get rich, it was all about, you know, got to do what's best for us. We're the group. We're the, you know, the future. It's we.
Which I do agree with. Treat others how you want to be treated. 100% agree with that sentiment. But I'm so tired of these workplace bullies, and they are bullies, you know, coming at you because you don't necessarily agree with what they want. You know, they want you to agree with, or you're not giving them the answers they want, or you're not answering at all because you want to stay out of it. Well, then you're complicit. It's like, fuck you, no, I'm not. Sorry, Mom. I just get so tired of this shit.
So this is an op-ed piece from the Wall Street
Journal.
Yeah, they said that, you know, they had a Democrat from California joining on the dog pile, tweeting that Basecamp's new policy may prevent employees from talking about fear of hate incidents. Okay.
That's not what this is about.
That's not what it was about. But employees can indulge their fears or loathing all they want in their own time. A company isn't obligated to make itself into. So
you're trying to say that they don't want to talk about it because they could be hate groups targeting.
Yes.
Well, this shouldn't be happening at work anyway. And you go to human resources then. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. They tell you not to talk about politics on the company platform. And your argument is, well, they might have hate targeted them and they can't talk about it. It's like, bullshit.
Yeah, so it's not going very well. I saw another article that the one guy wound up getting ousted. They've had to apologize. This has happened a couple times. There have been a couple companies that have come out and made statements like this, and it's never gone well. Usually you have a bunch of employees leave. I think what you need to do is, if you're going to have this policy, maybe not be so overt about it and not be like in your face, like starting immediately. Stop it.
I think people need to be aware so that they can, because you don't want to be like, you didn't tell us. I think when you're hiring people, you need to, like, well, just so you know, we have this policy in place. We're not, you probably don't get a lot of people interested in the job just because they aren't going to be constantly jumped about politics.
Well, there was that, what was that, one website that wouldn't hire, it was like anti-woke or something.
Oh, didn't they get taken down?
They got shut down, yeah, because they're like, oh, it's discriminatory practice. I'm like,
I love how it's discriminatory when they don't like it, but they're allowed to be discriminatory all the hell they want. I've never seen anything like this. It's so effing ridiculous that if you don't vote the way they vote, that they are so up their own asses that that you're the enemy. And that they have to make your life hell, and they have to bully you on social media or whatever. And you clearly are alt-right Yahtzee if you don't agree with what they say. And that is the most dumb thing I've ever heard in my life.
I would say institute an anti-asshole clause and just be like, I don't care what your politics are. Just make sure that when you speak, you're not speaking on behalf of the company as a whole. And also don't be assholes to each other. Right.
Don't bully your fellow employees, because you don't get to tell other people how to vote. They don't get to tell you how to vote either.
You don't have to like your fellow employees. And I get people have problems, whatever. But that can't become, because if you're both really good at your job, that's the key. If you're both actually good at your job, but you don't like each other very much, then fine. We'll find a solution. You go over here, you go over here, but we need you both. And we need you to not be fighting, because that's bad for the company.
I just think this discrimination bullshit. Some of the most bullying, discriminating assholes I've ever run across are these, extremist activists. And I'm not talking just on one side, I'm talking on both sides. But, those are like some of the most, toxic people you've ever seen, whiny people you've ever seen.
It reminds me of how back in the day you would get, people complaining about, like evangelical Christians going to work and using work as their mission field, and wanting to just constantly talk about religion.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
And if they said we're not allowed to talk religion at work, they'd be all about that. Oh yes, I agree. Yeah, we shut those Christians up. That's fine. They'd be all about that.
Politics.
But when you tell it is anymore, it's the exact same damn thing. And I love it. If you take it out and insert anything else in there, and it would piss them off, then my comment is, well, how's that any different?
Yeah, it's not. So I personally would just be like, yeah, this is not something we discuss. We're not going to take any hard political stances because that's not what we do.
How they get any work done if they spend their whole day at work?
That's probably the bigger issue. The bigger issue is probably they're talking to each other, getting in political fights, and the CEO's like, this is bullshit.
It had to be pretty bad to get to a point where they had to put a statement out.
Yeah, and we're willing to give you a severance to get you the hell out of the company,
right.
Basically.
So that tells you it had to have gotten really bad for them to go this far.
Yep. So I think I don't know. I would say more companies would do this, but we're seeing a precedent set that if you do, the media comes after you, Twitter comes after you.
Join the effing club.
All it's going to take is for a couple people with a pair of brass balls to be like, I don't give a shit what the media says. I don't give a shit what Twitter says. This is how we want to run our company. Deal with it.
But brass boobs also. We're not gonna gender discriminate. That's what I'm looking for. My brain is like pausing. Gender discriminate.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this one up.
Yep.
All right, so please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.